Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we're going to be looking at our weekly metagame analysis, breakdown, whatever you want to call it, for the standard best of one format. We try to cover all the formats: standard best of three, historic, timeless, explore. We'll probably look at alchemy since the new set dropped as well once we get some data in from there. Speaking of data, we get the data from what you see on screen. UntapGG, companion tool that runs alongside Arena's client. Tracks your win rates, aggregates it with other users. If you want to get started with Untapped, the link is in the video description. If not, I will paste all these deck lists for your consumption and timestamp it so you can get going there. The focus on this video, we're going to be looking at the top 5 highest win rate decks up to Mythic Rank for the week. And then this video as well, I'm going to highlight 2 decks that are relatively new to the best of one format that are putting up results. It's a smaller sample size for them. They're newer decks, so I don't know how well they're going to necessarily translate to future weeks. But I want to put it on folks' radar so that way we can kind of keep up with, these are maybe some established decks or innovation, and then these are the new decks that are coming out, something to keep on the radar. So like I said, we're going to start off looking at popularity of the day, and then we'll go to the decks themselves. Popularity of the day feature is intended to look at what's the metagame distribution in terms of volume of games. Volumes of games doesn't necessarily correlate to win rate. It could, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. It's just more like, this is what you can anticipate if you queue up the ladder. So, Mono Red Prowess is the highest played deck at 15%. So the differentiation between the Mono Red Aggro and Prowess deck is typically access to Slick Shot Show Off. There's a little bit higher density of spells. Usually some of the plot cards like the Raucous, Demonic Raucous, stuff like that. The Mono Red Aggro is more like your heavier density of creatures kind of effect. You usually see Squeeze and stuff like that, Godric's, stuff of that nature. Boros Convoke coming in at second place at 8%. We're seeing a revisit of the Mono White Humans kind of coming back in play. We kind of had them phased out, kind of get pushed out by Convoke or the other decks just in terms of popularity of the white-based aggro decks. But seeing those come in, Azorius Control at 7%. And then just some more fringe decks, Azorius Artifacts, Mono Black Skeletons, and Golgari midrange. Looking at just play volumes, we had like Convoke up at to like 20%. And we're seeing like the Prowess deck kind of switch. I always find this like April 1st Convoke, almost half the games were against Convoke decks, which is wild. So we'll jump into it. Like I said, we are going to look May 5th through the 12th, 7 days worth of data, Diamond and Mythic Rank. And we are going to look at 66,000 games. I tried switching it to just Mythic. It's still too shallow of a population to get meaningful kind of statistics. So we're looking Diamond and Mythic. That'll kind of give us the sprawl. It's beginning of the month, so a lot of those players that were previously Mythic are also kind of pushing to that. Like I only got Mythic yesterday from recording. So we're going to jump into it. Temur Control. So this is the Temur Ramp, Temur Analyst kind of deck. And we have some innovation with the deck in Best of One. So we have Invasion of Arcavius. So this is a 5-mana battle with damage 7. Enters the battlefield, search your library, graveyard, or a card from outside the game for an instant or sorcery card, reveal it, put it into your hand. And then you flip it, and then whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you may copy that spell, it gets new targets. What's this going to do for you? It's going to give you some utility in terms of just rebuying cards in the main board, your World Soul's Rage, your Splendid Reclamation, so you could kind of get that rebought, any sweepers, stuff of that nature, so you get all that kind of value there. In the sideboard, you have access to like your other World Soul, Ill-Time Explosion, you have Doppelgang when needed, Witness the Future, Devious Cover-Up, just protection kind of spells, Fade from History if you run into like a heavy enchantment or artifact-based deck, turn the earth if your opponent's trying to mill you out that way there. Some other innovation with the deck, we see a couple copies of Azusa's Many Journeys, just allowing you to kind of tap on tap lands, play extra lands, gain you some life against the more aggressive decks. Also just flips into a 3 toughness, 3 power creature. What you're trying to do with this deck is play these new Capenna lands with things like Nissa, generates you extra mana, helps you tutor for like Aftermath Analyst. You could sack Aftermath Analyst, bring these all back, get you so like a whole bunch of extra mana, gain you life. You do that with like Splendid Reclamation the same way. Eventually build a bunch of mana, play Virtue of Strength, and then fireball your opponent to death kind of thing. Memory Deluge for card advantage, All-Time Explosion for sweepers, kind of card draw all mixed into that. So kind of cool to see how this deck's been tweaked to kind of go for the best of one format, which is something important to kind of consider when you're playing these decks. Like a lot of times people just go to like MTGO lists, take a best of 3 list like an Esper mid-range and bring it to best of 1. But the meta tends to be slightly different. Like you're going to go a lot more linear or hard control typically. Mid-range doesn't typically do the best. So kind of adapting it to be more interactive perhaps, or giving you the toolbox elements. We then move to Mono Red Prowess, 63%. So this is, like I said, the more spell-based version. So you got Slickshot Show Off in here. It's interesting to only see 2 copies of it. It's a very lean deck. Right off the bat, easiest thing you can do is play an extra play Sokuzen in here. It costs you literally nothing other than a rare wild card, which you should craft all the channel lines, at least one of each. Off the look of it too, I probably wouldn't play Feldon. I would just play another Slick Shot, to be honest, for this type of shell. But what you're trying to do, just pump up your creatures. Cacophony Scamp is kind of a combo where if you deal the damage with all the pump, you could sack it. So it's basically duplicating its damage. Anger gives trample, Monstrous Rage gives trample. You have Burn that could be interactive. Demonic Ruckus gives trample. Card draw when it leaves. Menace to make blocking awkward. Blazing Crescendo also has some card advantage mixed in. Relatively budget deck. So like 3 rares. I think it's only like 3 rares the whole deck. Yeah. So if you're looking for a budget deck, definitely something to consider. I would up the number of Slick Shots. I would find a way to play 4. It's the best card in the deck in my opinion. Not biased that I love the card, but it's the best card in the deck. We then go to 5-color Domain, but wait, it's cool. So this is a list that Andrea Mengucci in best of 3 after the Pro Tour, he played in a PTQ qualifier on the next day and won it with this. So kind of the tweaks of this version's better against aggressive decks, kind of worse against control. You're using Ancient Cornucopia. So it's a 3-mana ramp spell that also incidentally gains you life. So you gain life for the first spell or the spell of your choice for the turn, only once per turn, based on the number of color pips it has. So if you Lightning Helix your opponent, well, now you're gaining 5 life, which against mono red could be like 1 to 2 turns. It could really swing the math in terms of that. So you have 5 cheap removal options up the beanstalk. You have basically access to 7 sweepers. Archangel of Wrath for life gain, Atraxas, Herd Migrations kind of all mixed into there as well. So kind of a cool innovation. We're seeing this card see play in Pioneer in like 5-color Niv to Light. So it seems like this seemingly unused Cornucopia is seeing play outside of the deck as well, or outside of the format. Then we have Mono White Humans, so 61%. So nothing like crazy with this, just Cavernous Souls, Plains. Again, just play a single Aganjo. It costs you nothing, and it will help in that case. But this deck here is just leveraging a lot of human synergy. Thalias to tax, Intrepid Adversary for life gain, and then just an Anthem effect, Copper Goat Vanguard for ward, and an Anthem effect. A lot of cheap 1-drops. The Luminarch Veteran helps just incidentally gain you life. You know, over the course of the game, if it gains 3-4 life, it can make the difference, especially when you're trying to race, just to kind of offset some of that damage. Knight of Aaron Navios for card advantage. There's a lot of kind of incidental like Anthem effects, multiple bodies. Adeline gives multiple bodies. Sanguine gives multiple bodies. All kind of plays into that effect. And then lastly, coming in 5th place is Azorius Control. So this is another deck that's been slightly tweaked to be pre-boarded for a best of 1 meta. So you'll see access to Knockout Blow in the main. This is a card that's typically relegated to sideboards, but in best of 1, if you're experiencing so much convoke, anything like that, just really any creature decks, 4 damage, deals with most of the creatures in the format. Even at 3 mana, gains you some life. Also seeing a couple copies of High Noon in the main board. So you're basically just playing this so each player can't cast them more than 1 spell per turn. You're pretty much going to just be casting 1 spell per turn, but it limits your like more aggressive players from, or like convoke players from just kind of chaining together things. For the Prowess deck, they can only cast 1 spell, so it makes it a little awkward. you're usually going to be playing on your opponent's turn anyways, or playing once on your turn, once on your opponent's turn. 3 steps ahead is a counter spell, just a lot of counters, removal. We have Bandit's Hall in here. Whenever you commit a crime, put a loot counter on it. This ability triggers only once per turn. So it's just kind of playing that Celestis role. And then you can basically, for 2 mana, remove 2 counters, draw a card. So kind of similar concept. I would probably still play Celestis. I just think in the matchups where you're paired against the mirrors, having Celestis to kind of just loot through your deck is a lot more valuable. But interesting take. This one's got a bunch of Planeswalkers, Archangel Elspeth, Jace, Teferi, as well as Wandering Emperor. Only one Wandering Emperor seems kind of suspect. I feel like I would max out on that before I would ever play an Archangel Elspeth. This being removal, being instant speed, lets you play your game plan the way you kind of want. So it's just interesting to kind of see that configuration. So new decks, new deck alert. Air horn sound here. Rakdos Crime, 57%. So 180 games, so not it's a reasonable volume, but we got all the crime folks come together. So Tiny Bones comes in, crimes your opponent, and then whenever a legendary comes in, crimes them. You got Tiny Bones in here. Magda can make dragons eventually. Vadmir gets bigger. File Smasher pings as well. So just a lot of incidental ways that all kind of blend together for crimes. File Smasher comes in, crimes. Like you get all those effects from crimes. Karavek lets you recast stuff. Laughing Jasper Flint gets you some value out of the graveyard, or like out of your opponent's deck. Card advantage. Lord Skitter, the token coming in targeting something in your opponent's graveyard is a crime. So you get that value. Gissa in here makes you a bunch of tokens. So Lord effect, you get Forsaken Miner back. This version's on some Play with Fires, Duresses, Go for the Throats. Interesting removal kind of selection. In a vacuum, I don't know if Play with Fire is better than Cut Down. I would probably say Cut Down. It's a little bit more flexible. It could go either way. The plus side with Play with Fire is you could just go face. But because you're playing Karavek, you probably want Cut Down just because Karavek only targets black cards. So that's a consideration there. You got so many legendaries as well, so you're playing a bunch of Plaza heroes to get value there. Interesting as well, you're seeing some of the deserts that ping just to kind of play into the theme of basically hitting your opponent with crimes. And then this is a community deck. This is from Eco-Chan. So kind of like wild streak. So overall they're 88 and 50 with the deck, but based off their like latest iteration, they're 20 and 4. So Untapped gives us some cool stats on individual performance. So they're up to like 649 Mythic. So this is kind of a combo-ish deck. It's built around a Simulacrum Synthesizer. So builds you constructs whenever you cast an artifact 3 CMC or more. Oh no, enters the battlefield. It's not even that. So this version's got like a bunch of sweepers. Thran Spider ramps you. You have Mightstone, Meekstone. And then you're leveraging things like Phyrexian Fleshgorger, which can be cast for 3, can be cast for 7. Cityscape Leveler in here. You have Push-Pull that can be used as removal or to reanimate. So you get that value, so you can kind of loot through your deck, reanimate, get the big things. Collector's Vault in here. So really interesting build. You have Fumari Vault, another card from the big score. So you can pay 3, discard a card, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of artifacts you control. Put one of those cards into your hand, rest in the bottom of your library. So just kind of tutor effects as well mixed into there. Reanimate stuff with Virtue. So they're like big, like Grixis kind of artifact mid-range tokens deck, which is really sweet to see some innovation like that. So that's it for the week. If you have any kind of really unique decks that you're doing really well with, you have the stats to back it up, drop a link as always. And you see in the top right corner, we're trying to hit 15,000 subs on the channel. If you enjoy this type of content, we come out every single week with it. Subbing is free, helps out the channel. So greatly appreciate it if you can. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one. Stay safe.